My name is McQuery. I've been helping get guests here for a little over a year. I'm very excited to show one of my favorite movies of all time today. On its 20th anniversary, GoodFellas. And we have a couple of amazing guests with us. I'm going to introduce them right now. The author of the book, Wise Guy, and screenwriter of the film, Nick Pileggi. And the man who played Paul Vario, who moved slow because he didn't have to move fast for anyone, Paul Sorvino.
Why do Italians hate Jehovah's Witnesses? They hate all witnesses.
Thank you both for being here. Welcome to the new Beverly. I'd like to just start at the very beginning, Nick, with how you met Henry Hill and how the book came about.
Let's see. I was a police reporter for 25 years, and at a certain point, Henry got arrested. Right when you see him getting arrested, and he goes into the witness program, and he needed money, and his lawyer needed money, and Henry decided to tell his story and write a book. And the prosecutors, Ed McDonald, who's the prosecutor in the movie, was the real prosecutor. Said, okay, who can we get to write the book? And I met with Henry and some of the prosecutors, and Henry started talking about it. He said, you know, I got Joey Wagon Wheels. I said, you mean Joey Fatico? He said, yeah, how do you know Fatico? So, but I'd been covering this stuff for about 25 years, so I knew all the players. And we hit it off. That's really what it comes down to. And then I just started debriefing him. And the interesting thing about it was that while I was debriefing him, he was a witness. So he was having to swear that the stuff he was telling me was true, because then I'd get the FBI guys to ask him under oath. So, and he didn't give a damn at that point. So you would really get fascinating stuff. And so that's basically how we put the book together.
And then how did the book get to Martin Scorsese, and what was that process?
That's a funny story. That was funny. It's the book came out and it was a bestseller in paperback hardcover, and Marty read it. And I was working at New York Magazine at the time, and I got a telephone message. In those days, you get messages, there were no email. He said, call Martin Scorsese. I knew it was a joke.
You're used to getting that, right?
Yeah, no, it was a joke. I assumed that it was David Denby, who was at the time the New York Magazine film critic. He's not a New Yorker. And he and I had known all the Marty movies, and we had discussed it, so it was clearly he was just full of my leg. And then I got another call. Call Marty, see what's the matter with you. And then my wife got a call from someone who was working on his movie. He was making The Color of Money at the time in Chicago. And there was someone else on the movie, and they called Nora North. Call him, it's really him. So then I called, and he said, I've been looking for this book for years. And I said, well, I've been waiting for this phone call all my life. He said, I want to write it with you. I want to do it. I said, you got it. That's all it is. Again, no contract. We don't need anything. Just we're going to do it. And we did.
Paul, can you tell us how you first heard about the project and how you were cast?
I was called, my agent called me and told me that Martin had reached out for me. And this was the second time, because he had tried to get me in Last Words of Christ. And I was working, so I couldn't do it. And of course, they sent the script, and I read the script, and of course, the whole idea was wonderful. And I went there dressed as the character, and that's something I don't usually do. This is something, this is really a big-time Paul Sorvino gift. I don't do that, you know. I just don't do that. I kind of walk by about 10 miles from your house. If you really want, you start running and catch me. Kind of the way it works, you know. Paulie doesn't have to move for anybody. He usually doesn't. But this was Martin Scorsese, again, as the aforementioned, the greatest director in the world. And I would, of course, have done anything in a movie of his, including, say, Dinner Is Served, you know, to be in a Martin Scorsese movie. So I went in to see him, and they were already negotiating. They were offering me the role and talking about the money, and so I went to meet Marty. Wanted to meet me, so I meet with him, and I've got my black cashmere overcoat on and a pinky ring. I did the whole thing, and because I didn't want to lose this. And we were talking, and I could see from the moment I walked in, he was absolutely wanted me and nobody else. You could see it, because he wasn't trying to hide it. And we were talking, I said, yeah, I said, I'd love to do it, Marty, I know just what to do. I said, but I think the money is not quite right. He says, I'll take care of that. This is pretty good. So I'm walking out of here. It's a very, very nice meeting, and I'm walking out, and I'm saying to myself, I swear, as God is my witness, I'm saying, I just told this man I know how to do this role. I haven't the slightest idea of how to do this role. I haven't got the slightest idea what it means to be able to say, kill that bastard. You know, these gabardines are really good. You should put this in, you put the sauce, whack that bastard. That takes a certain kind of lethal detachment, which was never really, I mean, the family Sorvino is a noble family going back to 1150. Our coat of arms is, I'm the polar opposite of the Paulie that you were expecting today, so forgive me for that, but it's a fact. And so I said, how am I going to do this? I mean, I'm a good actor and I know how to work on things. That doesn't have anything here. I'm going to ruin this great man's movie and make myself look like a fool trying to play a tough guy. Now, it's not that I'm not a tough guy. I mean, you hurt somebody near me or hurt somebody, then you'll see how tough I can be. But generally speaking, I'm a poet, I'm a painter, a sculptor, a singer. I have nothing to do with that world at all, never did. And so I went into, if you don't mind me taking a little more time. And if you do, it don't mean nothing. I know, you want to know about GoodFellas. So I started working on it. Now, in all things artistic, there are universal laws, form and content. If you're a painter, there's form and there's content. There's the way it looks and the effect that it has, the emotion. In acting, in writing, in all things, people are known as good technicians, but they don't make you feel. That's because they're form heavy, and like a lot of the old-time English actors are very form heavy, but they didn't feel it from in here. It didn't move us. So their content was weak. We have a lot of American actors who have very powerful content, but their form is a little lacking. Well, in this one, it needed both. It needed a lot. It needed a whole lot, and I didn't think I had it. It called for a gravitas in this kind of, as I say, this kind of lethality. So I started practicing. Well, I'm going to practice a middle-aged New York man, and a lot of practice to do for that, yeah. It's nothing but what I've seen all my life, and, uncles and, people. Yeah, so all you have to do is degenerate your speech a little, but that's it. That's all you need. And don't move as quick. I'm a tennis player, so move a little slower. That's all. And but there was the other part of it, which was really hell for me, because in trying to find that kind of lethality, that kind of dispatch with which you can dispatch someone without a moment of conscience, there's no technical pathway to that. It seems to me you need to be born with that. And I certainly wasn't, or so I thought. And there is in all of us, I suppose, the ability to kill without remorse, or else how can you train millions of young 18-year-olds to go do battle with people against whom they have no personal grudge and kill people and walk away? Well, I'm trying to find this, and I pride myself on being a really good technician. As an actor, I've very studied, a director, teacher. I've done many, many things as an actor, and I really know what it is. I know how I do it. I'm not in doubt about how this happens. But there is no technical way to find that thing. I can't even define it. It's a certain thing it's a certain way of being. It's a certain inside thing where someone says something and you're really going to believe it. You know, if Arnold Stang says, I'm going to kill you, you're not going to believe it, okay? So if John Wayne says, fill your hand, you better fill your hand or run like hell. There are certain things, and if Paulie Vario is going to do this and look believable instead of faking it, and I've never faked anything in 130 movies, and you'll never find it because it's never happened. I may bore you to tears, I may be wrong, but I will not fake anything. It's like an Italian restaurateur, give me a bad meal or I'll blow your brains out. He says, pull a trigger, I can't help you. So I have this intense pride about what I do, and now it's not a matter of celebrity or achievement or money or anything else. It's a matter of this battle with myself and how am I going to play this role and how I'm going to let down this great man whom I esteem above all others as a director. And what am I going to do? About 4 weeks after this is about 4 weeks, about 3 days before we started, I called my manager and I said, I think I've got to get out of this. He said, why? I said, because I can't find it. I have no idea how to do this. Naturally, I can speak like the character in a way, but there's that thing in there, that's gone. I can't find that. It's not me. You know, I'm a pussycat. I start to cry when I hear about a horse breaking his leg. I said, I really don't know what to do. He said, well, sit with it another day. If you really have to get out, well, I'll start it, you know. I said, I'm in despair. I'm in supermarkets. I'm trying to, in this kind of thing, it's way beyond the form, which is get the dialect, get the movement, get the inflection, get the way it sounds, get the way it looks. The emotions. Motion is easy for me. I'm Italian. Emotions come easily to Italians. Oh, by the way, they call us Italians because they think we're from Italy. And they're also ignorant. But anyway. So I'm trying to find this thing and I'm completely lost and really despairing. I mean, this was a very bad time for me. About 2 days before we started, I was going out one night alone. And in those days we all wore ties. And so I was putting my tie and I'm walking over to the front hall mirror and I'm going there and I'm looking and this is what I see. Wow! I literally, I swear to you, I jumped back about 1.5 feet. I said, what the hell is that? I scared myself by what I saw in the mirror. And then I said, oh my God, you found it. And from then on, it was as easy as it was just falling off a log. It was the easiest thing I'd ever done. Because once you find that thing, Olivia used to talk about finding his green umbrella. Or various actors will tell you when it's a matter of feeling. It's not a quantitative thing. It's not you can't really add it up and say this will work. It's a feeling. And when that feeling came over me, as you know, it was just like an easy thing. So that's my story about GoodFellas, and it's better than anything I think else I could tell you. That's the truth.
Now, Nick, you wrote the screenplay with Martin Scorsese.
Yes.
And I just recently reread the book. And the book is so rich with detail. There's stories of Henry in the Army, where he's still earning, using the street, the
Right.
things he learned on the street. There's a great story where he's driving a truck and there's cigarette cartons falling out of the back.
Yes.
There's just a million great stories in the book. How did you, and Martin Scorsese go through the book and decide what's going to make it into the movie, what's not?
Yeah, well, there are two things. Marty liked the idea of voiceover, and there was the only way you can do that movie is with voiceover, Henry telling his story. And we had enough of, we have the voice in the book. And once you've got the voice in the book, and in this case, he's telling the story, it works. I mean, it's like The Great Gatsby. It's a great difficulty in that is you've got this unbelievable voice of Fitzgerald, who is telling it in the movie. In our case, we had the culprit himself telling the story. And so then it was a matter of going through the book. Marty said, you go through the book and I'll go through the book and we'll figure out what the structure is. And then we'll put the things together and we'll see. Well, we went back, worked on the structure, came together, and we had picked exactly the same structure. We both got rid of the Army. We both got rid of a lot of that early stuff. We both definitely wanted where they put the post office guy in the pizzeria. I mean, it was so clear once you look at it as a movie, it's so clear. And so that's what we did. And then we broke it into scenes, and then scene by scene. The thing with Marty is that he's a great actor. That's, and you would, so I do the typing, or I did the typing, and then we'd start a scene, and then you'd have a little dialogue from the book, and then he would take it and he'd kind of like go with it. And then you bang it back and forth, and scene by scene. And there was a secretary, one of the secretaries outside the door, and somebody once asked her, what was he saying? Well, I don't know what they were doing. She said, all they did was laugh all day. And it was that kind of a writing experience. The other thing he did that was interesting is that we had Henry Hill's voiceover. And then, because there was a strong voice for Karen, the wife, Marty said, the hell with it, let's have two voiceovers. So it was, that's the way Marty is. And so we had Karen, and Lorraine Bracco was just brilliant. I was brilliant. And you had her voiceover, and suddenly you had a love affair going between the two voiceovers, and that worked. And then we did it again on Casino. We had Joe Pesci and Bob De Niro both voiceover.
The movie is very well known for its improvisation, and while basically everything's in the script and the structure's there and all the scenes are there, some really memorable set pieces came out of improvisation.
Absolutely.
Can you both talk about, was there a rehearsal process where that started percolating? Was it on set? How did some of those really...
I have taken a lot of bows for an incredible scene in movies. I make you laugh, you think I'm funny. That wonderful thing. Joe Pesci was in it. And he was, oh, how'd you write that? I said, well, I never wrote it. Never, when it's not in the script, you'll never find it anywhere. It was Joe, they're gonna have that scene. We had all the actors, Johnny Manca and everybody was in around, and they're ready for the scene, and there was the horrible dialogue. And Joe Pesci says to Marty, he says, I was in a club, and Joe Pesci knew those guys. Joe Pesci, the bookmaker, Joe Pesci was a knockaround guy, really knows that world. He said, I was in a social club, and I saw this happen. And he describes what you see in the movie to Marty. Whisper, they always whisper. I don't know what you guys
No, I spoke up. No,
you did?
Yeah, oh yeah. I speak up. That's why I'm in so much trouble.
Anyway, Joe Pesci had seen that in his own life. And the scene starts, okay, go do it. And he starts doing it. And Marty's got everybody in the camera. And you see the expression on the actor's face, because they know Joe is off dialogue. What's going on? And it's just little thing goes. And of course he just improvised the whole thing. It worked, I think, brilliantly. I've taken a lot of credit for it. And the second thing that's amazing, if you look at the script and you look at the book, in the book, Lorraine and Marty and Henry Hill's entrance into the Copacabana, with that wonderful music, that steady cam shot. It's like
One of the greatest shots in all of the history.
No question. In the book, it's 2 lines. In the movie, it's nothing. It's what happens when a genius director comes along and takes your 2 sentences and stretches it for 7 minutes with music and walls that were falling. I mean, it was a brilliant scene. And those are, it's not that I wrote it, but it's just, I wanted to get across to you just how collaborative a movie like that is. And you were, if you didn't take that part, who the hell are we gonna get? Nobody. The perfect Paul, when he sits there eating the sandwich, nobody could talk. This is all true. That was Paul Vario. Paul Vario was that guy. He walked slow. It was just perfect. And when you give Henry the money in the end, that's it. Now I gotta turn my back. It's just, all that is true. All of that actually happened. Everything. All that insanity. Hanging the guy in the refrigeration truck, taking 2 days to thaw his body. All of that stuff. And Jimmy Burke, of course, was the miraculous guy. James Conway, the Bob De Niro part. Anyway.
Paul, can you talk about what it's like working on a Scorsese set? And
Well, I was warned about that by
worked?
Joe Pesci, because I knew Joe for years, and I'd known Bobby slightly, but we had met years and years before. And we used to meet and sit around in the restaurant, coffee, actors afternoon, stuff like that. And Joe had said, if you ever work with Marty, it's a whole different thing. I said, I look forward to it. So what it really is I had the impression that I was somewhat like 3 feet off the ground the entire movie that I was working. That entire movie felt for me like I was not on, my feet were not on the ground. It is the most collaborative, the most extraordinary sensation. What Marty does better than anybody is he literally takes the structure, as you have so eloquently said, and then encourages the actors to put the meat on it, put the flesh onto the skeleton. And he rehearses each scene, a minimum of a half an hour, 45 minutes. This is something I do as a director too. Take my cue from him, of course. But as a stage director, which I've been for 35 years, I never let people get up until they're ready. So that was always kind of my way to do things too, because I don't like the idea of actors having to get up and worry about lines or things that they should be doing. They have to discover that at the table, sitting with each other, understanding what's going on in each scene. But when you're dealing with a play, you can't improvise, but when you're dealing in a movie, you can. And most movies are somewhat improvised, because to tell the truth, I don't care who the greatest actor in the world, including Brando, cannot make something sound, if he's studied it last night, let's say, or like I do just before I walk on. I'm lucky, I've got a good memory. But you can't make it really as good as it possibly could be if you have rehearsal. Or if let's say in rehearsal in a play, you have 4 to 6 weeks to acclimate yourself to those words. And so if it's to be or not to be, you're not worried about, you just a to be or not to be. It's just, it is or it isn't to be or not to be. But if you're doing that for the first time that day, it's a problem. Well, Marty obviously knows this, and he creates a nurturant atmosphere in which all the actors feel like they're completely at home. And every mistake is something. Like, for instance, I'll give you an example. First, we're rehearsing one of the scenes. I don't remember which one it was. It might have been the counting the money. I don't remember. We're rehearsing, it was, I'm trying to remember what scene it was that we were rehearsing. Anyway, we do a little run through, which is a little improvised already, and I said, boy, this is bad, wow. And Marty says, gee, that's great. And I said, naturally I didn't say, what are you, nuts? I said, this is the world's greatest director saying, this is great. I think he's senescent, it's premature, it's Alzheimer's. This is the worst thing I ever saw. So then we did it again, and then it got better. And then it got better, and then it got better. So in point of fact, what he does is recognizes that each wrong step is a step towards the right step. So that you just keep going on. And this is what I do when I direct a movie or film of any kind. What you do is you get it to the point where the actors are so full, brimming with the meaning, the emotion, and the intention, the action. Acting is acting, it's doing things, it's verbs. It's not states of being, it's doing things. Once that's so very clearly felt and it's comfortable, you turn on the camera and there it is. So when he did that, he would come up after something and say, boy, he threatened them over there. Why don't you do this? Or he's telling people to do different things. So yes, a lot of the words come out are improvised, absolutely. I don't know, 40, 50% maybe. But of course, without the structure that you guys gave, we don't do any of this. So, but that's the genius of Martin Scorsese, better than anybody else, who knows how to direct improvisations to a fairly well, so that they look like truly they're being done for the first time. And yet these are not hip shots. These are heavily rehearsed. We rehearse sometimes for an hour. When I directed that championship season for Showtime, the great Jason Miller play, I rehearsed 3 hours a day. And when they asked me, you going to rehearse 3 hours a day? I said, yes. I said, how are you going to make your days? I said, I'll make my days. He said, what if you don't? I said, fire me. Have a director standing by and I'll step aside. It's fine. We came in on schedule, $100,000 under budget. And I only, average takes were 2 or 3. Because I rehearsed so much that we walked on, everything done. Done. It was just filled by the second or third take. Everybody knew, what else are we going to do with this? It's already there. Martin is, I'm a nice acolyte and I'm a good follower of that great program that he sets up. I saw him do it, and I do it. But it's like being, kind of a cub in the lair of the lion. He's the man. And so, but we could all learn from that, and that's how he does it. That's why it looks so great. That's why it's so real. because it is real. He transforms the circumstances that the actors are living in to something that is palpable, because it's real to the actors by then. All of us who are any good at this, and I've been doing this 50 years, anybody who's any good at this can do something from the hip. It looks pretty good. I mean, you can just do it. You're just so used to it. You don't have to go through all kinds of machinations to find emotions or to do. You just, okay, let's see, I think I better cry here. And, and you do it. But I mean with reality, not as a joke. You really do it. But there's something better when it becomes that incredible group gestalt thing, where the sum is really greater than the total is greater than the sum of its parts, where you all get together and all of you feel something so special and so extraordinary and so deep, so rich, and we all felt it, believe me, that it's a landmark in a life. For me, as an actor, I think I was always a good actor. I think I'm still a good actor. But I reached a new level with that because of how much it called from me in the preparation and then the beautiful way it was done in the execution of it.
Nick, could you talk about the casting process? And I'm curious, were Jimmy and Tommy's parts tailored for De Niro and Pesci, or when did that come into play?
No, the Tommy DeSimone is that character. The character that Joe Pesci grabbed is who Tommy DeSimone was, Tommy DeVito in the movie. The only difference is that Tommy DeVito was 6'5".
And Joey is not even 5'6". He can't get on roads at the. He can't get on rides at the park.
But he was just as lethal.
But he's tall when he stands on his wallet, though.
He's amazing. De Niro was a perfect Jimmy Burke.
He's a perfect everything.
But that quality, I mean, I just watched him slow, just the way you talk about process, the way he got into Jimmy Burke and got in, and then at one point, he's coming out of the telephone booth, and he grabs a poster in Daily News, he puts it under his arm, and he's walking, and that was Jimmy Burke. He had gotten it. There it was. The other characters, we cast it out of an Italian restaurant that filled with wise guys. They're all wise. And Marty and I go to that place and we ask the owner, we're making this movie about guys. Can you bring some guys? Bring them in. Yeah, so Marty and I go, and the room is full of these guys. That's Petey Neck. Say hello to Petey Neck. Johnny Roast Beef. Hey, how are you? And we went around the room, and Marty said, him, Johnny Roast Beef. Yes.
And they're all actors now.
Now they became actors. Johnny Roast Beef was the guy who gets killed in the Cadillac. Johnny Manca had just come out of the joint.
Sirico had done time.
Yes,
Sirico.
Louis Eppolito.
Yeah, now, isn't it?
Louis Eppolito is the guy with the ring, and he's in the thing. You go by him, and he said, "Hey, how are you, fella?" Louis Eppolito was a New York City detective who was a hitman for the mob, who was just tried and convicted of murder many times. He was literally the mafia killer.
I met him. Nice guy.
Now he's in the movie, so he got this collection of guys. So when they started getting their contracts, Warner Brothers sends the lawyers, the suits come down.
She said the cops too.
And they started asking, well, we'll pay you by check. Oh, no, we don't check. No, we got to check. We need your Social Security number. What? These guys have never had a Social Security number. They don't have a driver's license. They don't have anything. Nothing's in their name. And the Warner Brothers idiots think they're going to get a social. So they started making up Social Security numbers. Warner Brothers got 17 digits. They all look up that's our cast. This is the and it's all true. I mean, this is who we cast in the movie, and I think it has an authenticity to it. And Michael Imperiale and a whole bunch of guys. And a lot of those guys then went on, and then you see them in The Sopranos. But they made careers for themselves. Johnny Roast Beef wound up in a couple of Jimmy Caan movies. Maybe he was in the Las Vegas movie.
He's going to do a movie
Honeymoon
that I'm set to star in called Last I Heard.
Oh, well,
And he's going to play a nice part in it. Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's great. He's a terrific actor. That was an interesting thing about these wise guys. They are funny, they're great company, and they're natural actors.
Yes.
I mean, it's just they have no training. They've done nothing but stick up here. But they understand.
Sirico said to me once, he says, I always play these tough guys. I wonder why. I said, maybe it's because you went to jail? You're a criminal? Is it possible?
You broke their leg. I mean, anyway, that's our cast.
Why don't we take some questions from the audience? Question, Damon?
It seems that we've learned through pop culture that gangsters love watching gangster movies. What is your best experience with like a made guy or even like an up-and-comer talking to you about this film?
You're asking me?
Yeah.
I didn't give you permission to talk. I've had people come up to me, relatives of Polivario, and this gets a little, I told you, I'm like, please don't hurt me, Mr. Man. I had a fight when I was 11 and I lost it, I remember. Thank you, he said, you've done my uncle real good. I said, thanks, I really appreciate that. A lot over the years, people have come, oh, one guy I'll never forget, he looked like my refrigerator. With buttons like this. He's standing like this, he's about 5'11", he's like this here. He says, Paulie, this is, I felt like saying, I'm Paul, I'm a nobleman. So he says to me, in a restaurant here in LA, this is a couple of years after the movie, he says, I just want you to know, we're very proud of you. And anything you need. One wants to make a list, but one wants to say, let me out of here. Because, you see, the problem is I'm also a singer, and I don't want to be singing at confirmations and weddings the rest of the day. Doing Jerry Vale's special. The wind blew the fire from my heart.
Another question from the audience? All right.
You talked about Joe Pesci and Robert De Niro, but I didn't really hear much about Ray Liotta. Do you have any anecdotes you can share about him?
He didn't know I was going to slap him. And I didn't know it either. I must tell you that what I felt for 6 or 7 months after having done this movie was ashamed, embarrassed, because I saw something in me that I guess had always lurked. And I would have, being the kind of person I am, I'm an artist, I'm not a tough guy, I'm not a gangster, that I could actually do this, because I know you can't, all right, you don't have to kill Desdemona to play Othello, but you have to have the ability to do so or you can't play it. That's why real bad guys play very good villains. I mean, real jerks play villains very well. And so I was very embarrassed about that. And so when I did that, I wouldn't slap a man unless he were going to attack someone or something, and I have to defend someone, or someone who, I guess so, my blue blood comes out, I slapped you, sir. But here it came out of nothing, and I just got the feeling, it was like being a gang. You talked about inhabiting a role. This was inhabiting me, and big time. It was the feeling that these guys have, from what I can understand, and now having actually the feeling of it, that for them to be crossed is worth your death. They really will kill people over next to nothing. And I got the impression, if you look at the scene carefully, it looks like he's trying not to pay attention, like trying to avoid me. And as soon as I picked it up, I smacked him. Because these people will not brook that kind of non-compliance, that inattention. They're not going to let that go. I don't know much about him. He called me up, said, we're going to do this. He came to befriend me, and it was a great thing. He's a total gentleman and a terrific actor. That's all I know about him.
The thing with Ray, in keeping with the movie, he is the betrayer. He betrays his closest, the man who really raised him, And as a result, he's Irish. He's not one of them. And as a result, Ray Liotta had this incredibly complicated role to play, where he was a part of that world, but also not quite a part of that world. And Marty's mother, Catherine, at the breakfast, says, "Wait a minute, Henry, you
Yeah,
don't talk too
pause,
much."
yeah, you know, pause.
Hooves.
Yeah, the hooves dog. She says to Henry, "No, you don't talk too much, Henry. What's the matter? Why did you?" You know, she understood it in the drama more than the other guys. They just accepted him. So Liotta, I thought, was just brilliant.
Oh, boy.
In the way he walked that balance. It was very complicated. This guy was a murderous, cool guy from then. Bob, I think you could have had their parts, but Ray, I think, really had to walk a very thin line. He was brilliant, brilliant.
Another question? There on the end?
One of my favorite parts of the book was the Boston College
yes.
fix. Why did you choose not to include that?
It would have taken us on a journey, and we wouldn't have had the same thrust. This is the first, that's not really the half of the movie, but the first chunk is, he is growing up to be a wise guy. And and then you broke your cherry. Remember, you meet him coming out of court, it was like he graduated. You'd think the guy just got out of Harvard or something. And then from then on, he gets a little bad, and then he starts with the coke, and it's drugs. The Boston Point shaving scandal would have been just a small, and it was too complicated. You'd have to go to Boston, you'd have to, it just took the story away, so we left it out.
I think there's just one line where they say, do you hear about the point shaving we did in Boston?
Yeah,
What's
that's
so boring?
just as a,
Yeah, the richness.
Right.
Other question? In the back?
Scorsese uses music, I mean, music plays a really big role. Was that there from the beginning? Was that where you were writing the script?
yes. And then this is the thing with Marty. As you're writing the script, he'll say things like this, putting cream. I'm a Frank Sinatra person, so I never heard of cream. What do you want with cream? No, putting cream, just putting cream. So I turned in the script, cream, and all through it. When you're writing the movie with Marty, he already has storyboarded it. He knows, right? He knows what the scenes are, and he knows what the music's gonna be.
And how can he know that much
I don't know.
and still improvise like that?
Yeah, I
And
know.
let the actors be completely free to
Because-
let it go.
because he's so confident.
You gotta have the bare balls to do that.
And he's so confident that he understands the
You're really
material
good.
so intimately that he can play and do things. and-
Remarkable.
Yeah, no, it is remarkable.
Another question?
I like to cook a lot. I watch a lot of cooking shows.
Yes.
I hear GoodFellas referenced about 4 times a year on cooking shows, and people are slicing it up. Seriously, what is it about that scene you think that resonates with people so well? It's just that little slice of life and this big, sprawling epic. But
I think you've just
people really
put your
remember
finger
that
on it.
scene.
I mean, it's such the polar opposite of what the nature of this man is. But as I said, he's probably responsible for 10 or 20 deaths just by ordering them. And here he puts so much importance on slicing a piece of garlic with a razor blade. And it's his point of pride, it's his personal Beckerian heroism that he can do this better than anybody. And there are people, actually, somebody come up and say, that really wasn't you cutting it. I said, I'm a sculptor and a painter, and a pianist. I think it was me. And I think, and if I may take just a little bit of a little hubris here, when you do something like that, and he makes a thing out of it, it's like a big part of the scene, you have to do that as if it's you walking on a tightrope. It's as if you were doing something very dangerous and the stakes were very high. Now, as actors learn, you have to always understand that if you don't do something, there's punishment for it, or there are consequences, which elevates the stakes. Everything and anything in any artwork establishes stakes. And so that's why we're interested in watching. There's that rooting interest, because we know what could happen. Well, if he doesn't do this just right, he loses his sense of self-heroism. Italian men like to cook. I do. I have a food company and all the rest of it. But we pride ourselves in being very good cooks. And I understood that because I'm cooking since I'm 12. So the idea of just doing that, I mean, it's almost laughable. This killer of men, this boss, silent, scary, monolithic character from another planet is doing this and cutting the garlic. With the intent, And if you'll forgive me, if I hadn't done it with such importance, if I hadn't given it that much importance, I don't think it would have been what it turned out to be, which, as Marty has said, is kind of the quintessential gesture of the picture. Not that it means anything, other than that it's so memorable, I think because it serves to point out how human these men are, even though they are subhuman in so many ways. And so that I think we find very, very interesting. And anytime why are action movies so easy to watch, and why do we follow them? Because as Stanislavski said, acting is the accomplishment of tasks. As Sanford Meisner said, acting is doing. As Sorvino says, acting is verbs. If you are doing things, it's always interesting. Why a guy like, the governor does this and it's interesting? He can't act a lick, we all know that. But he knows how to do something with reality. And that, my dear friends, is acting. It is the reality with which you do what you're supposed to do that is the acting. That's what they call it, acting. It's action, it's doing something. And so they don't need to be any good. Westerns don't need good actors. Witness the Clint Eastwood, he can't act either. But we like to watch him because he's very interesting when he does things. That's very interesting. He's a good director, though.
Another question? Right there?
You talked about the use of a voiceover, which worked very well in the film and in Casino. Were there ever any drafts of the script where you tried not to use the voiceover, or were you ultimately nervous whether the voiceover were?
No, I think voiceover is too maligned. I mean, if you've got a great voice over, then you've got to use it. Just as I said, in Great Gatsby, it's one of the great voices you're ever going to find in a movie or in a book. And I think in both Wise Guy and Casino, I don't mean to, but in these were books written, they took years to write, where you got out of the major character who were real. None of this is made up. These are all real people. In Casino, Frank Rosenthal actually got blown up in his car. And I was so fascinated to meet him finally and ask him, what was it like to get blown up in your own car? And he said, I kind of just sat there, and he said, I turned on the ignition. He said, I saw these little blue flames coming out of the vent. Oh my God. And he said, and then they got a little bigger, and I thought, uh-oh, there's something the matter with the car. So he said, I went to open the door, and there were flames coming up on the door. And he knocked the door, and he fell out onto the street, and the car goes up. So under his seat in that brand new Cadillac, there was a steel plate. And they had put the bomb in the wrong spot. And as a result, he lived. Now, just getting that story from him was, how do you not have him, how do you not use that voice? Because nobody's ever going to get that again. And then Marty takes that, and he puts the St. Matthew's Passion on top of it. Go away. I mean, that's it. There's nothing. So the voiceover, I think, as long as you've got good voiceover, good voices, I think that voiceover can be very helpful and is really your story. The problem with voiceover is that a lot of times the script doesn't work. And some things don't make sense. And they'll say, well, why don't we get a voiceover? Paul can then explain that the reason Henrietta can't be here is she had to go, But that's when voiceover doesn't work, and that's not really voiceover, that's emergency care.
And the amazing thing about the voiceover is it's right out of the book. It's Henry's voice.
Yeah,
and
you've got the
it's literally verbatim.
Yeah, you get these guys actually, I'm a reporter really, and you'd go there and I just sit down and I taped them, I transcribed it, I would go over it with him. Sometimes he'd tell it one way, sometimes he'd tell it another. I don't mean different stories, but he would put in that it was a yellow Pontiac convertible, Bonneville convertible, or in another story he would forget that. But you distill it until you get the truth of his voice, and everything quoted is actually quoted. You can listen to the tape. And then he had to swear to it in court, which gave me confidence that he wasn't conning me, as Henry would have been more than capable of doing. He would then go into court and testify in open. And if they caught him in a lie, just like Ed McDonald says in the movie, they caught him in a lie, he was out of the witness program, he was back in joint, he wouldn't last 15 minutes. And he knew it. He knew his life depended upon his telling the truth, and I was the beneficiary.
All right, we'll take one last question over there.
My question's for Nick. In all your experiences meeting and writing these different characters and actually putting them on the screen, have you ever had a bad encounter?
No, I agree with Paul. I mean, I don't know how that happened, but maybe we were all lucky to follow The Godfather. But these guys you would think of would be incensed are not. It's as though you've made movies about them. They think of themselves as like cowboys in cowboy and Indian movies. They don't think of themselves as bad, or they have a code, they have a belief system, and when you put them in a movie, and we're not giving them dignity, but you're making them real, and you're making their lives real, and you're not moralizing. They have no problem with that at all, and I found
They loved it. In fact,
they were-
it was The Godfather that taught them how to be gangsters.
That's right. That's true. Henry and Paul Barrio and they all went to the Paramount in 1972 when I went to see The Godfather. And Henry told, he said, you know, we came out of that movie, we were all high. I said, it's not us. Where's my life? He said, I got to the car and I reached under the seat to make sure I had my gun there. He said, it made me feel good. I had a gun. I was a real wise guy.
Last thing. If you have an electronic device that makes noise or lights up and interrupts the movie, you will be whacked.